Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Tank Talk Podcast, your favorite podcast in all of the earth. We're so happy that you're here today because we've got a fun one for you. John, what are we talking about in this podcast?
This one's going to be interesting because we're going to talk about a big debate here, and that is choosing the right aquarium size is not just about the size of the fish. Oh boy, we could probably talk for hours on this.
Well, yeah, and we probably could because there's a lot to discuss when we're thinking about the aquarium size, the volume. There's just so much that goes into it, and often we just kind of scrape the bare minimum as to, I just like the way this fish tank looks, or this is the space I have, so that's what I'm going to get, or I'm just going to get the biggest thing I can, or the smallest. But when you really think it through, there's a lot of potential thought that goes into this. So I'm going to ask you from the start, what do you think you should be thinking about when you're looking at a fish tank size?
Well, I'm in a unique situation because I live in a very, very old house, almost 200 years old. This building that I'm in right now, almost 150-ish. The other side of this building, not even sure. It's probably older than that. And with old houses comes what I like to call bouncy or spongy floors. And so we have to have that talk before we can talk about anything else is, can this space that we have even have an aquarium without falling down or making the house collapse? So I think the substrate, I guess, would be the best way without confusing that with the bottom layer of an aquarium. Where the aquarium is sitting, I think, should be the first thing, because just because it's sitting on a wooden subfloor doesn't mean you can't have an aquarium there, but it probably does limit the size, especially if when you walk through the room, the whole room bounces like that building over there that we have. So, yeah. Can it handle an aquarium? Because obviously the first thing is going to be the fish. But if we're trying to exclude that, it's going to be, can it handle an aquarium? That's my vote anyway.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, you have to realistically assess the space where you plan to put the aquarium in terms of, can the floors, the foundation, I think was the word you were looking for. Can the foundation, that's why I'm here. I'm a thesaurus. Hey, you, thesaurus, can you come over here and give me a new word?
That's good. You're like a real life Google. It's perfect.
That's right. Can your floors handle the weight of an aquarium? And just the space in general, be realistic about the space that you have, because you might be able to fit a 6-foot aquarium. Oh, I've got 6 feet of wall space here. Okay. But on one side, you actually have a wall because it's the corner of your room. And on the other side, you've got a big old TV or a piece of furniture or a support beam or something. And pretty soon you start to realize, I can fit this aquarium in here, but I have no way to get around to the back side of the aquarium. So you want to look at not only the floors, but the space around around where you're going to put the tank, and make sure that you've got access to the sides and the back. And, if you spill a little bit of water, is that going to be okay? And can you clean it up easily? Because if you can't, that could all be a problem.
Or if there's a giant leak that, welcome to fish keeping. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Can your floors handle that? I know mine can't.
Yeah.
But I know that going in. I mean, this side of the building is concrete, but over there is not. And I know it would be horrible if one of our one of our tanks leaked over there. Mm-hmm. That's just the risk that we're willing to take. But structurally, there's places in that will not hold an aquarium. We actually got that on video. So
how about that? All right. So the other thing too is you do have to consider the fish. I don't want to skip over that. I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, the fish are a secondary thought. No, they are. Once you've figured out the amount of space you have, I think we do need to address the idea of, you need to know what kind of fish you're going to be keeping. Don't just run out and buy a tank because you think it's cool looking and then realize, this isn't going to work. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to make sure that you have a general understanding of the types of fish you want to keep now and the types of fish you might be interested in later, right? So that you're not having a mismatch there. So, for instance, let me give you an example. All right, you ready for this? This is going to be rapid fire.
Give it to me.
You want to keep cichlids. Okay, so you want to keep Mbuna cichlids. The space you have is 3 feet. So you got 3 feet of width. But you also have heard that in this Mbuna is like at least, let's say, a 55 gallon. All right, so bare minimum, let's just say. So you decide, I'm going to buy a 3 foot tank that's maybe a foot and a half, 2 feet wide, but it's also a really tall tank. So maybe, I'm not working out the math necessarily, trying to figure out the exact volume, but it's a 2 foot, maybe 30-inch tall tank. It's only 3 feet wide, maybe a foot and a half across. I've met the volume requirements. Is that a good idea?
I don't like the sound of that tank because that sounds like a tower of a tank that would
Mhm.
easily tip over. And I don't even know if a company, a responsible custom manufacturer, would make one that with that footprint. Maybe they would. I don't know, but um, I I don't know. It's a weird thing because I always advise people just like you did. The first decision that needs to be made is the fish. What is it that you want to keep? That way, if you put a tank in that is appropriate to the size space you have, and then you go shopping for fish, you're opening yourself up for disappointment because you're going to see fish after fish that you can't keep because your tank's not big enough or whatever. But I, I don't know. I don't even remember what your question was because I've gone off here. But
The question was for an Mbuna setup. If you have, so basically what I'm imagining is you've got roughly 55, 60 gallon tank that's essentially like two to two and a half 20 longs stacked on top of one another. And the question
and
is,
you're
you've met the volume requirement for most people would recommend, hey, at least a 50, 60 gallon aquarium. But based on that, those tank dimensions, is that a great size for Mbuna?
I still don't like it. I mean, would they survive? Yeah, I think they would. I
What don't you
guess.
like about it?
Well, I don't know. It just for whatever reason it seems too tall for me. I don't like because Mbuna they're aggressive. I mean, they're the least aggressive of the three. Some haps are pretty non-aggressive too, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
Mhm.
depending on what kind of Mbunas you choose, you could have some bangers in there, like red zebras or Kenyi or something.
Mhm.
And I like for them to be able to have somewhere to retreat to. And I don't know that with a tall tower type tank like that, that's hard to say 3 times fast. I don't know that they'd really be able to do that. I feel like length is important. I don't know. Maybe I'm just ignorant here, but I don't
I
like it.
100 I 100% agree with you. And I like
Good.
that you're thinking that through in your brain because my point here is one of the things that you're going to have to consider is how territorial, just like you mentioned, how territorial are the fish? Because when you're looking at a tank size, it's not just about the volume. It's about how usable is that volume for the fish that you are about to keep. And so, thus, you really do need to consider the fish because, yeah, while you've got this 50 or 60 gallon tank and the volume is fine because that's what a lot of people recommend for the bare minimum, the usable space in that tank is not very good for the Mbuna because they need space, they need territory. And so, one of the points that I often make when people ask me, because people get mad at me when they ask for a tank size recommendation, they get mad when I don't give them a volume and instead I give them a length and a width. That just sets some people off. They get so angry. I'm like, what size tank for a Mbuna? I'm like, at least a 4 foot.
Yep.
Well,
I
how
do the
many
same thing.
gallons? I'm like, it could be a 33 long. It's only 33 gallons, but it's 4 feet long and 12 and a half inches wide. And you'll be able to keep a breeding group in there. So you have to consider the aggression levels. Do they have space to spread out? Can you put in line of sight breaks? Can you put in separate structures if you've got multiple males? And in this scenario I just gave you, you intuitively know you can't do this. This isn't going to work because, yeah, they got a bunch of vertical space, but they're not going to use that. They're going to chase each other around in this 30-inch long tank, and it's going to be an absolute mess.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that tank wouldn't be perfectly suited for other fish, though.
Sure.
Uh, Angels, I mean, that sounds like a dynamite angel tank, but Imbunas, not so much. And,
Yeah.
you know, if all you have is 30 inches, then I would just be looking for a 20 high, and I would just be shopping for fish that can fit in a 20 high. I wouldn't be messing around trying to get a wild 3 by 18 by whatever. I probably wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
But I do the exact same thing that you were saying. One of the most common questions I get, because I'm an Oscar guy, what's the minimum for Oscars? And I say a 6 footer. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
do this right now, will they survive in a 4 foot tank? Of course they will. We've done it. We didn't like it, but we've done it. 6 foot tank, they can be in there for their entire life, and you'll be doing the right thing, and you'll be doing better than most people. So I'm with you. I do the same thing. I don't usually do that with nano, small tanks. I don't tell people get at least a 2 footer. It's usually the bigger ones, 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot. I like to do that too because there's a lot of 6 foot long tanks, and they'd all be fine for Oscars. Well, unless you have some weird,
the the 6 foot long bookshelf tank. You're like,
yeah,
dude, that's a 40 gallon. It's only about 8 inches tall. So Oscar's like, yeah, thanks for the recommendation, bro. I have to constantly swim on my side for the rest of my life. I got
exactly.
some strange gill thing going on over here. It's always
And
dry.
even, the argument that we're making, even if you say 4 footer, if somebody asked me, I want to keep an Oscar, what's the minimum? And I said, okay, listen, the minimum is 4 feet, but let's go with 6. We'll be better off. If they choose that tank behind you, that's 4 feet.
It's 4 feet. Yeah.
That would be a catastrophic mistake for Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you gotta use some common sense too. But again, that's why I stick with the bigger tanks. I'm like 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
works usually.
And so, okay, in this scenario, then all right, the Mbuna are out. However, when it comes to tall tanks, if one were either drawn to that because they like the look, they've got a special aquascape in mind, they are size constrained, but they do want something that is going to be eye catching, right? Because a 20 gallon long is a cool tank, but not necessarily like you're not walking into a house and like, whoa, dude,
Right.
that's awesome. So you could go 29, you get a little taller, but maybe you do want something a little larger. And so maybe you do find a column tank. Maybe that column tank is 30 inches long, just like a 20 long is. But it turns out instead of being 12 and a half inches wide, it's like 18 inches wide. And it's a tall tank. And you are getting a 50 gallon out of that, let's say, or even a 60. There are fish you can keep in a tank like that. You mentioned angelfish. I could think of a few others. I don't know if you've got any others. Like if someone said, hey, this is the tank I have, what would you recommend?
I mean, all of your tetras, your barbs, your live bearers, I mean, they're all going to be perfectly fine in there. Whenever we're talking about a tall tank that's over like 40 gallons, I immediately go angels. I mean, that's my automatic go-to. Not Ultims that get the size of a Volkswagen, but your regular angels that you can get at your pet store. I go to that all the time. But I mean, all of your nano fish, they're nano fish aren't required to be put in something 5 gallons or smaller. They can go in big numbers in bigger tanks like you've got in your 125 there. I mean,
Fair. Yeah.
the sky's the limit. A bunch of really small fish is probably what I'd do with
Yeah.
something like that if you don't want to go angels.
Yeah, I agree with you. I always recommend for those taller tanks, again, we're thinking through the tank size options. I love guppies, endlers, platies, all your live bears, guppies, endlers, platies,
Mollies.
swordtails, mollies. Those are fish that generally do use the entire height of a tank. Gouramis would be another one that are constantly up and down, up and down, up and down. So most of the time, what I tell people about aquarium sizes is it is the horizontal that matters, not so much the vertical. So you really do have to consider what's the usable space, right? Because you can go with that back to our example of the Mbuna, get a 55 gallon, just a standard 55 that is 4 feet long. You're going to be in a lot better shape than one that is 30 inches, let's say.
Yeah. It's no better front panel than a 30-inch panel, though. I love it. I, I mean, my favorite size tank is the 240. Next to that would be the 72 by 18 by 30, I think it is. 150. I love that. I just love that 30-inch panel, but I also like that 30-inch front panel with the length to go along with it. I'm
Yeah.
not as big of a fan of the really tall, skinny tanks. I mean, that's just not really for me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to do it because that's the only space you have, then fine. Pick another space. But still,
Yeah.
move things around. Stick it over there. You don't need a couch. Just put it over there.
So here's my next question. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let me think this through. You have discus, or this is going to sound wildly crazy, but you have a choice between two fish: discus and tinfoil barbs. Okay,
What? Oh, okay.
so your choices are discus and tinfoil barbs. All right, separate tanks. Both of them you could put in, let's say, a 120. Would you? Let's say you had a 4 foot 120. All right, so it's 4 feet by 24 inches, and it's going to be about 24 or so inches tall. Which fish are you choosing for that particular footprint?
100 times out of 100, it would be the discus
Why?
because the tinfoil barbs are going to be a lot more active. They're going to be all over the place. They're going to get longer as opposed to taller. And so that's my answer 100 times out of 100.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you need to consider the activity level of the fish when you are figuring out the volume and how that tank is actually going to be laid out in terms of its length and its width, right? And I
100%.
agree with you 100%, and you're absolutely right. And again, that's it drives people crazy when they hear a suggestion. They'll be like, "Oh, I want tinfoil barbs, or I want ballast sharks, or I want mascara barbs, these larger, very, very active fish." And then they say, "Well, I've got the 4 foot 120, and people keep saying a 125 is recommended or minimum tank size. Well, I've got a 120, and it's just 5 gallons less." And my response is, and they get so angry. I'm like, minimum, bare minimum to me would be a 6 foot tank, but for tinfoil barbs and ballast sharks, actually the minimum is 8. That tank behind you is probably about as small as I would go for a group of tinfoil barbs or ballast sharks. They're going to reach a foot and just be in constant motion, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Where discus, they don't move.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I think one of the things that people don't fully appreciate when they begin keeping discus is like, yeah, they're gorgeous. They are really beautiful fish. But if you're looking for fish that are going to be like constantly searching and swimming around your tank, you bought the wrong fish.
That's right.
And those, I don't need a 6 foot tank. I can do the 4 foot 120 and be perfectly fine all day because they're not bouncing off the sides, going all over the place. They're mostly, not that they don't swim, but they're mostly stationary fish.
They just sit there and look absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're good at. And no, I mean, I'm on your side there 100%. And I think the reason why that happens, though, is because, I mean, how many times have you been into a fish store and seen a tinfoil bar bigger than that for sale?
Right.
I mean, they're always going to be really small. The bala sharks are not
Mm-hmm.
much bigger. And shark, mommy, I want a shark. I mean, uh, definitely one that could be put on the list of most mistreated fish in the hobby. But yeah, I mean, that's just, it's 100% of the time. It's the activity level. Not every 120-gallon aquarium is the same.
Right.
That is the perfect 120-gallon for discus angels. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I keep going back to
Severum.
that. The angels, they swim around more than discus do, but they're still
Mm-hmm.
not what I would consider to be active fish.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, 4 foot is going to be completely fine as long as it's not a 33 long, because again, you know,
Yeah.
that's going to be a really small, one of my favorite size tanks, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Love the 33 long, but not for angels or discus fish that are taller. So yeah, not all gallons are created equal. That sounds
That's
like a good saying right there.
Not all gallons are created. That is a good saying.
Hey, so I'm
That's
on to
the
something
title.
there.
That's the title. Maybe that's the
We
title. Not all gallons are created. That's the title. We just figured it out, everybody. Right here, live, well, record right here, recorded and in person, and on your screen, we got the title. Now,
love
don't
it.
forget that. Write it down somewhere.
I
Because
will. I will do that right
by the
now.
time this podcast is over, be like, hey, what was that title supposed to be? Like, you're gonna have to go back and watch the podcast because I don't remember what the title was. Not all gallons are created equal. Love it.
And y'all that are watching this can follow along with the views and compare it to other videos on our channel and see if that title worked or not. It
Yeah,
may be a big
fun.
bomb. Who knows?
It's fun. It'll be all my fault because I just said that's the title, and like, dude, the title was stupid.
Well, I put it in your head, so it's my
That's
fault too.
true.
We can
I
take this one together.
at first I was thinking it would be a T-shirt. You could just make a T-shirt out of that. But
That's
then
not
I'm
bad
like,
either.
well, all right, well that's all you. You go ahead and create the T-shirt from the title and have fun with that. I hope you sell a million different shirts. I do want to state from the outset, though, on our live stream last week, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start a trend in fish keeping.
Uh oh.
We, at some point, we're probably going to do this, offer 1980s satin jackets with our logo on the back. They're going to be
Oh,
ugly, man. I mean, they're going to be
I'm
awesome.
in.
All right. Well, I mean, it's going to have like the three-stripe collar, things around the wrist.
I
We're
am
going
so
all
in.
in.
Yes,
How
let me
cool.
know.
We're going to bring them back, dude. We're bringing satin jackets back into fashion.
I
You
love it.
guys heard it here first. So,
And after you do that, Lisa and I will create a denim jacket that'll be the same kind of a thing.
dude, but you got to put the patch on the back. Like, you had the Iron Maiden patch or
Of
something like
course.
that.
Of course. Absolutely.
And then
Yeah, we're going to bring the 80s back. Best era ever.
love it. Satin jackets, jean jackets, and then you can put all the different patches. You can
And
make a new patch like once a month, new patch release.
we'll wear Izod shirts underneath.
Z Cavaricci's. Oh, that
Love
didn't
it.
really go with the jean jacket all that much. That would totally clash, but that's the whole point. Parachute pants and your jean jacket.
I love
So I
it.
don't remember what we were talking about. It's something about fish tanks and
Yeah.
volume and fish activity, and then we got off onto this. But I think the point we were trying to make before we got into men's fashion and women's fashion, and if you didn't know this, that's our next podcast. Next week, all about men's and women's fashion and fish keeping.
Because obviously we're well versed in that topic. Both of us
Heck
are.
yeah, we are. Look at that. You got KG Tropicals. I got the prime time shirt on. We know what's up.
That's right.
Okay. And about four of you do too, because you're probably wearing the same thing. So we have discovered at this point, you need to first identify the space where this tank is going and be realistic about that space. We've discovered that you need to be very aware of the foundation that this tank is going on and whether or not it can hold said aquarium. We need to be thinking about, yes, we have to be thinking about the fish. The overall size of the fish is super important. We also need to think about the usable space. Just because you have the volume doesn't mean that the volume is useful. Thus, the title of our new podcast here. Activity level, crazy important because the more active a fish is, usually the more horizontal space that fish is going to need. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. You might cover the volume and not have the adequate space for their actually swimming around. The next thing, not necessarily going in order, was aggression. If the fish is territorial, you got to spread these fish out. It's one of the reasons for me. I don't know what your opinion is, but I much prefer a 20 long over the standard 20 because of that reason.
For aggression. So they have somewhere to go, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
just for more space so the fish can spread out because even small fish can sometimes be aggressive and might need a little bit of a break from other fish and just setting up those line of sight breaks. And that can be really, really useful.
I'm mad at you. I'm not going to put up an argument. I
All right. Well,
personally, I prefer a 20 high. I think the appearance is better, but I understand your argument. I'm saying,
you can be wrong. You can be wrong. Just like you're wrong about the 29. It's like the worst tank ever, but you like them, and that's okay. Someone's got to like the ugly ones, right?
that's
The
right.
ugly
I mean,
tanks.
every family has an ugly kid, and you know what? The parents still love that kid.
And
So
John just collects all the ugly tanks. Here's a standard 20 and a 29. Meanwhile, the fashionable people are like, oh, let's go ahead and take the 20 long in this 4-foot bookshelf rimless tank.
hey, listen, I think the people will side with me
They
when it
probably
comes to
will.
the
They're,
29. Forget the 20. When it comes to the 29, I believe the words you're saying right now are unacceptable. And I think
An
most people are going
abomination, if you will.
to, it's horrifying. I mean, people are going to side with me on that. Let us know in the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah, yeah. No, but here's the vote. Here's the vote that we need to hear from you in the comments section. Are you ready? The vote is: are you team 20 long or 29 gallon? Based on the looks. I'm not talking about the useless extra volume that the 29 has. I'm talking about the look, right? Just the aesthetic of the tank. We want to hear from you. Which one do you like best?
This I'm winning this one. I don't even have
You
to put in.
might.
I'm not
You
going to
might.
campaign either. It's just going to happen because
Okay, we'll
people are
see.
smart.
20 long or 29. That's your choice. Okay. Now that we've got that settled, what else are we considering here when it comes to tank size? What do we have to figure out?
So I don't think this is probably what you're looking for, but I think it's absolutely critical and goes along with what we've talked about so far. Please don't consider minimums as the standard. What I mean by that is, well, for a 70 for an Oscar, I don't know why I always go with Oscar, but for an Oscar you need a minimum of 75. That doesn't mean 75 is okay. We always, with everything, I don't care if you're keeping rosy barbs, we want to give them more space than what the minimum says. So, you know, think about these things long term. Yes, an Oscar will survive in a 75. Is it going to be happy? No. I can make all the arguments about it. So, if you go with the minimum, you're going to have to ask yourself long term, are you doing the right thing? So, always shoot for above minimums. I don't like when I'm asked what's the minimum for the. I'm like, if I say 75, the person's going to go and buy a 75. So that's why I always go up to 125. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I do the exact
sorry.
same thing. When people ask me minimum, I always just say long term or 125. I
Yep.
don't even mention the 75. And that's where I think the internet gets a lot of people in big trouble because I do tons of species profiles and I'm looking just to see what the consensus is. And I'm like, this is more times than not, it's just flat out wrong. It's very aggravating when I go on the internet and I look at what a lot of these supposedly reputable sites are saying about water parameter ranges, fish tank size requirements. It's just they're copying from somebody who copied, from somebody who copied, from somebody who copied, who's somebody's selling the fish, who's trying to get the fish into people's hands
Mm-hmm.
most. And I'm like, this is a mess because none of this is actually correct. So you got to be careful. And that's why, like to your point, if you keep hearing 75 is the minimum, 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 minimum. Well, keep in mind that could very well be wrong. Go a little larger, like you said. I'll go back to the tinfoil barb example. I had those poor things in a 4 foot 150. So it was 150 gallons, a lot of volume. It was 4 feet wide, 2 feet, I'm sorry, 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, 30 inches tall. But those fish, they needed to get into a 6 foot tank. And unfortunately, I put them in a 6 foot tank and they were older at that point. And they were like, you just moved us. We stressed out and they've died on me. And I was like, that was
Oh
always my
no.
fear because people would ask me, they'd be like, dude, those fish need to go into a larger tank. I'm like, I know that. My concern is tinfoil barbs they don't like the stress of being caught. These are older fish and I'm worried about moving them. And sure enough, I moved them and they're like, thanks for the longer tank. Now we're going to expire. So,
It's
but
horrible to
that
laugh at that, but
I know it was. I knew that was going to happen, and it did. And I was like, oh, this is freaking great. They could have lived in the 150, or now they're not living at all. So, but that brings up another point because an Oscar, you can keep an Oscar by itself, right? So that's thus the minimum size, 75 gallon. But the problem is, let's go back to our tinfoil barb or ballast shark example, which gets about the same size as an Oscar, at least lengthwise, right?
mm-hmm.
But there's a problem because with the tinfoil barbs and the ballast sharks, you got to keep them in groups. Right? You don't
Yep.
have to, but you really should if you're trying to keep them correctly. So what are you going to do with 6 tinfoil barbs or ballast sharks that are all a foot long and super active in your 4 foot tank? You got a big problem. Even in a 6 foot tank, I think you've got a big problem.
And you will, with particularly ballast sharks and tinfoil barbs, you will know that fish is miserable.
Mhm.
You know, Oscars are moody. We all know that. They have those big googly eyes, and if they're upset, you know it. But if you'll end up seeing your ballast shark sitting in one place, and if a ballast shark is just sitting there, there's a problem. It's the opposite of discus. So yeah, you'll know right away you're doing the wrong thing, and it's a good point. I mean, because the minimum says 75 gallon, that's one fish. How many people have a tank with just one fish in it? I mean, not many. That's boring. So, except for crazy cichlid people. So, yeah, good point.
Yeah. And not only that, but if you keep them in a tank that is too small, again, going with your active fish, we said, hey, activity level matters. And it doesn't have to be a fish that large. It could be a mascara barb or a filament barb, which are a little bit smaller, but still very active, still need to be kept in groups. You're keeping those fish in a 4-foot tank and they get startled at all, or maybe they're chasing something else around, or they're getting chased and they freak out. Now they're smacking themselves off of hardscaping and off the sides of the glass. They wound up looking all beat up. Probably the greatest example of that was the iridescent shark. I think we talked about that, I don't know, a few weeks ago. I have yet to see those fish in a home aquarium that doesn't look like it got into a fight with Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson from 30 years ago, not current day. Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I don't. Mike Tyson would probably like, man, I think I just lost the fight to the fifth.
I don't know if you saw
Mike, what happened to you? I lost the fight to that Bethenthok.
You would never say that to his face. Even
Probably
now.
not, because I was like, what happened to you? I lost the fight to Mike Tyson. Now I'm talking like this.
Now I talk like him. I don't know if you saw his last fight, but I wish I hadn't. I mean,
I saw enough to be like, I don't know, man. We can't say what we think anymore. Because did you hear that the person who won that fight is now coming after people who say that the fights maybe weren't? I'm not even going to say it. They weren't, So we can't even say that stuff without them legally coming after people publicly anymore. But I think Mike Tyson probably could have won that fight. Is all I'm going to say.
Well, all I'm going to say is this. And if you come after us, Jake Paul, come after me, not Jason. You didn't beat Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson beat himself.
I'm not saying that Mike Tyson lost. I'm saying that wasn't Mike Tyson.
No.
You came into that ring in 1994 against Mike Tyson, you'd have been in the grave right now. I'm saying.
I question whether or not he could beat Mike Tyson today.
Well, I mean, Mike Tyson was doing some weird things in that fight that I've never seen him do, biting on his gloves. The commentators were saying, oh, that's a tick he's always had. No, he's not. I've never seen him do that. That was a weird fight, but you know what? We're going to get in trouble if we keep talking about it. So
that's right. Let's get back to our iridescent shark that looks like it got beat up, right? So, yeah, the point is, again, you're not just looking at the minimum tank size. One other thing to consider too, when you're looking at tank size, when you're choosing it, we've talked about this numerous times in the past, all the things you need for an aquarium. Larger tanks mean more equipment, larger equipment, a lot more cost, not just for the tank itself, but for everything that goes in it.
That's so true. And I have been just as guilty of this as anybody. I've been guilty of this in recent projects that I've done around my house, and certainly guilty of this when it comes to aquariums. I mean, I can remember back in 1993, money was, what's that? Like I had no money, and I was finishing my basement and building in the 2 tanks into the wall. All I thought about was the cost of the glass box. I didn't consider everything else. It all adds up. The gravel, the fake plants that the Oscars kept pulling up, the background, the filter, the heat, the light, everything. It all adds up really, really fast. Do not just look at the cost of the glass box, particularly when you're talking about big bangers like this. Mm-hmm. The glass box might be $4,000. Well, guess what? The stand is going to be the same amount. I mean, you're going to double your price when you go for that stand. So yeah, there's so many twists and turns to think about. You have to consider big picture, and the bigger you go, the more expensive everything across the board is.
So I want to take you back in time to the OOs. This basement finally gets mostly finished. We got the walls up, the floors up, and I told Joanna she was not into fish at all. Didn't care about them either way, but I'm like, hey, now that the basement's done, I really want to start adding some tanks. So I had the 75 gallon that was still here. So I set that up in the corner. And then the very next thing I wanted, of course, is a bigger tank.
Of
So
course.
we decided, like, hey, can we just run a PetSmart? They had at the time the 4 foot 150 and the 6 foot 125s. And of course, I wanted the biggest volume. So I'm like, I want the 4 foot 150. And I think the tank at the time, tank, lids, light stand, under gravel filter. Because even in the OOs, they were still rolling with those things that is part of the PetSmart thing. I want to say that all of that was around 700-800 bucks. And so I told Joanne, I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be like 1,000 out the door, all this stuff. Now I knew in my head that was probably a low ball estimate. I will never forget the look on her face when we pull up to the register. And the tank was whatever, it was like 800 bucks, like I said. But then I had two Marineland Penguin 350s, I think, or maybe it was the Emperor 400s, but I had two of those. I had the lights. I had the air pump that had to now pump four uplift tubes in a deep 150, all the gravel, the rocks. I got the big plastic caves and all this stuff. And I want to say, I'll never forget the look on her face. She rings everything up, and I'm pretty sure we were at like 2 grand. And
Oh,
Joanna looked at me like she was gonna pass out. And I've got like this half smile, and I'm just handing her the credit card, being like, here you go, ma'am. Just ring this up, do it quick before we get into a big argument here in the middle of the PetSmart. But it adds up fast. These bigger tanks, the bigger you go, the more stuff you need. And we didn't even have fish that night. That was just, I mean, it was fully set up for that price, but out the door was, yeah, we about doubled that price.
I had a very similar thing. In fact, I did a video last week talking about this tank. I did take a couple of year break when I was going through my divorce and all that kind of stuff, and then met the love of my life and blah blah blah.
All right, so to be
We
clear, divorce from not Lisa, love
Oh,
of your life
definitely
is
not Lisa.
Lisa. So let's because I don't
No.
want you to have a black eye. I don't want you to look like you got beat up by Mike Tyson.
And she
'Cause
listens
she
to
will whoop
every one
you.
of these episodes here. No, I am definitely talking about my ex-wife. I upgraded big time, trust me, when I moved up to Lisa. But so there was a little period there when Lisa and I moved in together. I had told her I want to get a fish tank, and it's the tank that I was talking about in last week's video. But anyway, I don't even know when we're uploading this. I found it on Facebook. As a matter of fact, the tank is right there. It's still here. I mean, it's never leaked. It's still operating perfectly. Bought it in 2010, and it was on Facebook. There was no marketplace yet. It was just not Facebook, Craigslist. My bad. And it was $400 for the a 125 with the stand, the black pine, store bought stand, two AquaClear 110s, and a heater of some kind. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's $400 for everything. I don't need, that's all I'm going to spend. Now, Lisa and I, we had not combined our income yet. I was paying my bills, she was paying hers. But that was, I probably tripled that by the time I went and got the new filters, because the ones I've replaced them with 110s, but the ones that came with it were trifling. I mean, they were terrible. Lights, gravel, all of it, when it was all said and done, it was pretty much the same kind of a deal you did. If I had bought a 20 long, everyone's least favorite tank, if I had bought that off of Craigslist, it would take way less than that to get it fully set up. So yeah, size definitely impacts everything all the way across the board. And even when you're looking at these starter kits, I don't even know that one exists that's 125 gallons, but the 55 gallon starter kit is very common. Marineland, Top Fin, whatever. You still have a lot of stuff to buy when you get that. They're a great deal, and I think they're great for beginners, but you still have a whole lot more money that you're going to end up spending. So just know that going in, everything's more expensive the bigger you go.
Absolutely. And not only that, but as you're considering the tank size, know that the larger the volume, the more time you're going to spend maintaining this thing. It just water. It's human physics, man. Human physics. It's just, yeah, it's right. It's human physics. The more volume you've got, the longer it's going to take to do water changes, the more algae you're going to have, the more gravel you're going to have to vac. Nothing frustrates me more when you're actually cleaning an aquarium. Like when you get to the 6 foot tank and you realize there are now two center braces there. And so now you have to take the gravel vac out and like try to hold the bottom and then get into the next section, the next section. Oh my gosh, what a pain in the you know what that is. And so larger tanks, it's going to take you a lot more time because there's no fast track in the water changes if you are somebody who has to do them. So 20 gallon, 50% water change is 10 gallons. You do that on a 125. Now you're like, oh, do the math. That's like 60 gallons, man. I'm going to be here a while. Yes, you are.
Yep. Know that going in. Everything's amplified. Uh, I have my next part of things to consider. It just popped into my head, but I want to make sure that you're done. And this
Do
is
it.
your episode, so
No. You're
I
buying it. It
should
was
be
brought.
waiting for you. So I think you may have kind of touched on this briefly earlier before you went on your Mike Tyson rant, but consider that spot. You've picked that spot. Now, you have this space in your house because you moved your couch, and that's the space you want to put the tank. You're on a concrete foundation. Thank you for reminding me what that's called, by the way. You know that the tank is going to be safe there. And so you don't have to worry about that. There's a power outlet right there on the wall. But I want you to think about that maintenance. All the more maintenance that you're going to need to do, like Jason just said, but I want you to think about logistics of that maintenance. Where's your water source? Where are you going to be using buckets? What's wrong with you if you're using buckets? But how are you going to do your maintenance? Are you going to use a Python? How close is this to a sink? It doesn't have to be your kitchen sink, but a sink. If you do have to do it with buckets, where are you going to dump those buckets? How far do you have to go? Those buckets drip a lot. They slosh back and forth and water splashes out. Think about maintenance. You're going to be doing a lot of it on the bigger tank that you get, which is above the minimum requirement of whatever fish you're looking for. But is it going to be easy? I'm telling you right now, I learned this from experience. The more challenging it is to do maintenance, the less maintenance you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So make your life easier, make your fish's life easier. Consider, okay, maybe I shouldn't put it on that wall because there's only one outlet there, and I'm going to blow the breaker if I plug it in there. Plus, water's on the all complete opposite side of the house. Don't just say, I'll figure it out. Trust me, what you're going to figure out is you're miserable. So don't do that. Consider the maintenance as part of the deal and know how you're going to do that maintenance before you make your decision to put your tank there.
You know, I was thinking as you were saying that, when we first started setting up tanks down here, like I said, we had the 75 and the 150, and we had a few other aquariums. We didn't have a sink down here. So the closest running water we had was up the stairs in the kitchen. So I had a Python hose. So the Python, we would just screw into the kitchen sink, run it all the way in the kitchen, down the stairs into here. At the time, I also didn't have any way to shut the water off down here like I do now. So what we would do is it was me and Luke and Eli, and usually one of the boys would be up at the kitchen sink and they would turn the water off and on. Somebody down here would be like, okay. And then you got to turn the water on, and then tank would fill. And you say, okay. And then they know to turn the water off. Then you switch the hose to the new tank. Well, there was one time where I was like, hey, we're going to switch roles. I'll be the water person up in the kitchen, and then you guys just tell me when to turn it on and off. Now, at the time, the kids were young. I mean, we're going back to the OOs. So Eli might have been 3 or 4. Luke was 6 or 7. When I say that they've been cleaning tanks since they've basically been born, I mean it. I did a video where we calculated, like with Eli, who's my 17-year-old, legit, he has probably cleaned somewhere between 12 and 15,000 tanks in his lifetime. Because think about it, he's doing 40 every single week, and he's been doing it since he was a little tiny kid. That adds up. But anyway, I'm up there. Kids get distracted, but grown-ups do too. I think there was a baseball game going on the TV in the living room. So I start peeking over. We were doing the 150, and that, again, 50% water change on a 150, it's 75 gallons. That's going to take a minute. So I get the water on here. I turn the water and I go walking over and I start watching whatever baseball game was on. And all of a sudden I hear a little voice and then I hear panic from like a 7-year-old Luke. Dad, I said okay. Dad, I said okay. I'm like, holy crap. And I turn the water off. I come down here and Luke looks panicked.
Oh
And it was
no.
just at a point where the water was starting to drip over the top rim of the 150 and like drip down the front of the tank a little bit. It was completely full. And he's like, Dad, didn't you hear me saying okay? I'm like, I guess I missed it the first couple times. Oh, it was so, yeah. I mean, the point is, bad things can happen when you don't plan ahead.
Let me ask you this. You didn't siphon through the python.
No, we siphon directly out the window. So there's the
Okay.
one window that we have down here. The tanks were high enough where if you put a gravel vac in there, ran the hose out the window in the basement, it would just go right into the grass. Grass looked fantastic back in
Oh, I
those
bet it
days.
did. Yeah.
But that was one of their jobs. So one of their jobs was we had to open up the window. So in the wintertime, that particular job would stink. So you'd have little Eli or Luke in there, full winter jacket and gloves on because they got to hold the hose out. I'm not saying it was the smartest setup in the world, but they had to hold the hose, and the window would be cracked. And if it was 10 degrees outside, you're getting that draft the whole time. They're just like, let me go get my gloves, and so they'd be all like gloved up. It wasn't that bad, but they had to get all dressed up for the occasion.
But see, you're making my point for me 100%. It's like, you know, in hindsight, you would be like, you know what, we should put that sink in before we even bring aquariums down here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an expensive thing. Call a plumber, do that whole thing. But that was one of the things for us was appealing about this building was that it already had one of those slop sinks, laundry sinks, whatever you want to call it, already in here. Plus, there's a bathroom on the other side. So, we knew right away, okay, this is going to be perfect. Of course, we had to rip the floors out and get concrete put in, but uh, the maintenance part of it was critical. And this is also not our house, so if we wanted to, we could just run the hose right out. And we've done it. We do it all the time. Run the hose out, put an Ultra Zero in here, and just pump the water straight out into the grass. And again, the grass loves it. It looks great out there. It grows too fast, but it looks great out there. But those were all things that we considered before we even moved into here. And that's something I'm proud to say Lisa and I have done every time we've set up a fish room is first thing is what are we going to be doing for maintenance? How are we going to get water in here? How are we going to get water out? What are we doing for temperature? Blah, blah, blah. And that's saved us a lot of heartache. And, uh, you know, it's worked out. So trust me, it'll save you a lot of heartache if you pay attention to that kind of stuff. Don't put your tanks in an inconvenient spot and just think, it'll be fine. It won't.
No. Well, plus if they're in an inconvenient spot, maybe it's a spot where you're really not paying much attention to them, you're gonna just burn out of the hobby. It's gonna fade away because it just becomes work. You're not really enjoying it. So what's the point, right? So when it comes to tank size, we've discussed now the cost, and both the cost in terms of money, the cost of time, types of fish you're going to keep. Are they active? Are they aggressive? Will they use height or do they need more of the horizontal swimming space? What else we got when it comes to choosing tanks in the proper size?
Well, I this is not original because you literally just said it, but I want to expand on it a little bit. Having that tank be in a space that you are going to enjoy it. I'm not going to lie to you. This whole thing that we have here is including us, most fish keepers' dream to have a building outside of your house that has aquariums in it. We are living the dream for sure, but it's not all it's cracked up to be because it is detached from the house. Some of my fondest memories are from sitting down with the kids. They were all little and watching TV or watching a movie and having a 125-gallon tank right there next to the TV. And I would find myself looking at that more than I did the TV, whatever movie we were watching. When you are detached from it, like you said, you burn out a lot faster. It becomes a chore. You have to actually I come out here to look at the tanks and to do all of that. It's not something that just happens organically. I have to actually make it a point to come out here. And I'm just being brutally honest. It's taken a lot of the fun out of it.
Yeah.
It's very rare that Lisa and I are out here together unless it's live stream nights. We've made it a point recently to one day a week, we're out here, both of us, we're doing our thing, and it's a lot of fun. But that's just kind of making my point for me is that we have to actually make it a point to come out here and do that. Whereas when it was in the house, it was there all the time. We enjoyed it a lot more. So be cognizant of that. If you're in your office all the time and you're thinking about putting your aquarium in the dining room all the way on the opposite side of the house, I don't know. You might want to think about things. Maybe go a little smaller, put it in your office. I think you'll enjoy it a lot more.
Matt, that's huge. When you're thinking about the volume of the aquarium, the size of the aquarium, don't just get the largest tank because you've got the most wall space in a place, like you said, a dining room where are you really just going to be sitting at this dining room table, especially if it's not a table you normally use? Like, well, let's just sit here at the table and watch this tank. You're going to do that for about the first month.
Yep.
And then you're like, why am I sitting here? It's uncomfortable. I'd rather just go in the living room, watch TV. I'm the exact same way. This area, so this gallery, right now, I'm down here a lot because I'm constantly working on this computer. And so I get to turn around and look at the fish a lot. But the most useful our aquariums have ever been in terms of enjoyment was just like you. When we had aquariums on either side. There's a giant TV right behind me, like right in the center of the wall. And we had aquariums on either side. Then we had the 75, and we had the 150 over here. That was, believe it or not, by far the most that I had ever interacted, watched fish, watched the tanks, even though I've got this fish room over here to my right, and there are 30 aquariums in there, but that's all that's in there. So unless I am in there to do something with the fish, there's no reason for me to be in there, to the point where Joanna and I have actually discussed, like, what, maybe we've got some wall space over here. Why don't we put a TV down there? But then we got to figure out seating. And so I'm not sure that's going to work just to actually be down there, because you will, once the thing becomes ordinary, you're probably not just going to come down there and be like, I'm going to just stare at the fish all day. I hear that all the time. I'm sure you do too. People will comment like, man, if I had that fish room, I would just be down there all the time staring at the fish for about a month. And then
Yep.
it becomes common. And unless you have a reason, like you in your area there, it's just, you don't spend as much time with the tanks as you might think you will.
I'm reminded of a great Cinderella song from the 80s. Don't know what you
There
got
is
till it's
no
gone.
such thing.
Excuse me? Come on. Don't know what you got till it's gone. That's a great song. I don't care. I'll say it right to your face. I don't care what you say. That's a great song. I'm pretty sure that's Cinderella. But you
All I
not
know
into hair
is it was
metal?
oh gosh, man, that was those types of bands are what drove me to listen to punk rock in the 80s, because the music, I will always tell people, my general opinion is the movies and the music were really good in the, no, let me rephrase. The movies were great in the 80s. They were okay in the 70s, really great in the 80s, pretty good in the 90s. By the time you get to the OOs and beyond, movies really start to tail off. Music, acceptable in the 70s, deplorable in the 80s, awesome in the 90s, and then it just went completely downhill from the OOs on, and it's just gotten worse every single year since. So there was a sweet spot in movies that was 80s and 90s, but music was all about the 90s, and that was just about it. But my gosh, the 80s music was, oh, it was bad. It was so
I'm
bad.
gonna I'm gonna go agree with you on movies. I mean, three of my favorites: Karate Kid, Goonies, and Back to the Future. All in the 80s, all within 2 years of each other. I agree with you on movies. Music. I mean, I don't know. I'm a big Metallica fan. Guns N' Roses, the metal from the 80s. I agree. Hair metal wasn't the best, but
Unless you were a chick.
I are you going to tell me you didn't like Def Leppard in the 80s? Come on.
No, I couldn't stand
Oh,
Def Leppard.
Jason.
Oh, it was horrible, horrible, horrible.
Oh,
No,
whatever. You and
that
I,
wasn't
our friendship just took a hit. I'm
Def
sorry.
Leppard wasn't. That was almost hair band, right? So that was your Poison, your Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard. Uh, I don't even know some of those other bands. They were all just tons of
If
makeup.
I'm interrupting you, if you're calling Guns N' Roses hair metal, this conversation's over.
It is hair metal, dude. All right, new
Guns N'
vote. You've
Roses,
totally, totally. My, have you looked at a picture of Axl Rose? The dude wore more makeup than Madonna did at the time. That was a hair band. It was not quite as hairy hair band, but it was still a hair band,
when I
to
think
be
of hair
sure.
bands, I think of Bon Jovi, I think of
What the
Poison.
heck's the difference? That's Guns
I
N'
don't
Roses.
I don't think you can put maybe Duff McKagan, maybe Steven Adler, maybe Axl Rose. You can't put Slash in the hair category. You just can't do it.
He
That's
was in a hair
blasphemous, is what
band.
that
I
is.
mean, maybe he and like of himself wasn't a hair musician, but he was in a hair band, and they
One of my
were
favorite
all
bands of all time is Metallica, and they were in their prime in the 80s and 90s. So,
okay. Well, I'll accept that. Like
okay,
Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax.
sure.
Those were true
Slayer,
heavy
okay,
metal. Yeah,
okay.
right. But it was
Guns N'
all about
Roses
punk
are too.
rock. Yeah, punk rock, man, in the 80s.
I loved me some punk rock too. Forget about it. Black Sabbath, Black Flag, Sex Pistols, Suicidal
Misfits, Minor
Tendencies,
Threat. Yep.
Misfits, everything Glenn Danzig. Yes, I'm with you. Descendants. I could keep going.
Okay. All right.
But am I speaking your language now? See,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
a very eclectic.
7 Seconds, Naked Ray Gun. I got you there. But can we agree that the 90s? I mean, it was fire. It was almost firing on all cylinders in the 90s when grunge got into it. You can, whether it was Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. I mean, there was a million that just erupted, and at the same time, movies were really starting to fire on all cylinders. And I don't know what happened around the year 2000 where it all fell apart, but it like seriously started to just all come crashing down. It's like human species ran out of artistic flair, ingenuity, and originality. And now I feel bad for kids. And I think everybody here should feel bad for youth of today because they don't know what it's like to look, well, in our day, a newspaper, but in their day, a phone, whatever, and be like, there are 5 movies I'd like to see. We'll see this one this week, this one next week. When we
Yep.
were kids growing up, or not kids, but younger in the 80s and 90s, you could go to a theater just about every single weekend and see something cool.
Right.
Nowadays, you're lucky if a good movie comes out once or twice a year.
It's
It's
true.
really sad.
Unless it's a Martin Scorsese or a Christopher Nolan, these days, you're right. I mean, there's not. Quentin Tarantino hasn't put out a movie in a while. He's probably my favorite director of all time. But uh, yeah, there's not as much. But we're also having this conversation the day Superman releases, and ever since 1978, Christopher Reeve Superman, that's been my guy, and so this is a very exciting day for me. I'm hoping that trend changes today. I don't get to go and see it until tomorrow, but hoping I'll be able to say next time we record a batch of podcasts, oh, there's been a good movie that's come out, and I hope that is Superman.
DC,
But
it won't be.
stop it! Now we're gonna fight. I'm coming through this camera, and we're gonna fight now. My
Dude,
favorite band to come out of the '90s is it's going to be. Did they come out in the '90s? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Korn. Korn's my favorite band from the
oh, that
'90s,
would have been a 90s band for sure.
and
Yeah.
and I'll say it right to your face. Second would probably be Alice in Chains, the Pearl Jam, and we could keep on going. But I
There's some
agree. The
solid
'90s,
choices. Yeah.
the '90s were a great time, and Metallica was also in their absolute prime in the '90s. So, '90s are a good time for music, but the '80s is where it's at. From Karate Kid completely changed my life. Goonies, I mean, man, Goonies. Are you kidding me? The 3 movies that I talk about from the '80s: Goonies, Karate Kid, Back to the Future. I could watch any of those 3 movies right now and be just as delighted as I was when I was 10 years old watching those in the theaters. So, anyway, what have we done here today?
What have we
What were we
done?
talking about again? Are we talking about
I don't know.
aquariums or something, or what?
But I do feel like as long as you consider your entertainment choices, your tanks are going to be a lot more enjoyable. So I don't have anything else when it comes to decisions to make when it comes to tank sizes. I don't know if you do.
No, I mean, I would just probably beat the point down a little bit more. Don't consider minimums. Minimums, and that's with everything. If the tag says minimum of groups, minimum 6 to 8, that doesn't mean you can only get 6 to 8. Get a nice group of 12, 14 of those fish, not Oscars, but, don't consider minimums for everything except for feeding. Feeding's the only time we're going to actually consider minimums. Don't consider minimums when it comes to maintenance. Don't consider minimums when it comes to gallons, because not all gallons are created equal. And don't consider minimums when it comes to groups of fish. I've beaten that one to death. That's all I got.
I love it, man. That's a good thing to end on. And so, everybody, you've got some work to do, just as a reminder. 20 long versus the 29. And I don't remember the other one.
Well, Guns N' Roses hair metal.
Yeah, that's a hairband. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Go enjoy some good music and better TV from the 90s. See you next week, everyone.
Appetite for Destruction, one of the best albums ever made.
No, it's not.
Pyromania from Def Leppard, one of the best ever.
Even worse.